Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Supporting Yah's Cornerstone. My name is Heshra'ah, and that name means moved by Yah. In today's video, I'm going to talk about should Hebrew Israelites store extra food and water, and should we be prepping? Is that something, and also is that something that our nation did in the past, in ancient times when we were in the land of Israel? The answer to both questions is yes. It is a good idea to prep, so to speak, which is, I guess, a new term that's being used in the last few years. Is it important to store extra food and water? Yes. Did Hebrew Israelites do that during ancient times? It seems to me that yes, they did, and I'm going to read what gives us a little evidence of that. So what I'm going to do is answer the second question first. Did Hebrew Israelites preserve food? And so if you go to Leviticus chapter 25, verse 1 through 5, and that's Leviticus chapter 25, verse 1 through 5, and it says, "And Yah spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto Yah. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for Yah. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vine undressed, for it is a year of rest unto the land." So there was a law within our nation that every 7th year that came around, we wouldn't plant anything, that we would allow the land a break. And if you go to Leviticus chapter 25, verse 18 through 22, it says, "Wherefore ye shall do my statutes and keep my judgments and do them, and ye shall dwell in the land in safety. And the land shall yield her fruit, and ye shall eat your field, and dwell therein in safety. And if ye shall say, What shall we eat the 7th year? Behold, we shall not sow, nor gather in our increase. Then I will command my blessing upon you in the 6th year." So just like Yah gave our people extra manna on the 6th day, except in that case we couldn't save it. But in this case, in the 6th year, the Creator is saying that He would bless our gardens and our fruit trees and things, and it shall bring forth fruit for 3 years. So our gardens and our fruit trees would produce extra, a whole lot extra, to account for that 7th year that we wouldn't be planting. As a matter of fact, it's saying that it will produce enough to last 3 years, and that was a really good idea because you couldn't plant again to the end of that 7th year. And so when you plant the seed, and it takes time for it to grow. And by the Creator providing so much extra, then that allowed for you to come into that 8th year, grow food, plant food, wait for it to grow, bring it in, and then you still don't necessarily have to just be, eating all of that. You have enough put back to account for you having what you're bringing in, and then still having some extra until you kind of get refreshed get caught up from that 7th year break. And then in verse 22 it says, "And ye shall sow the 8th year, and eat yet of old fruit until the 9th year. Until her fruits come in, ye shall eat of the old store." And so in order for there to be old store to eat, you would imagine that our people, all that food the Creator gave them on the 6th year, that they had preserved it. You can imagine at that time that they used whatever food preservation methods that they used at that time. Definitely, maybe they would have been drying food. Whether they canned food like we do today sometimes, I don't, I don't know. So that is proof there that our people preserved food, because in order to keep that law, they would have had to preserve that extra food that Yah provided on the 6th year. And so now that we've answered that question, that yes, Hebrew Israelites had to have known how to preserve food. So now we'll go back to question number 1. Is prepping or storing extra food a good idea for Israelite women and their families today? Yes, absolutely yes. And here's some reasons, why. If 70 to 100% of your food comes from other sources other than you, especially a grocery store or any type of food source, any type of food store, it is wise to store extra and preserve. So most of us are not living off the land. Even if we have land, the question is, do you produce? Have you gotten to the point where you produce at least 70 to 90% or even 100% of everything you eat, that you can completely provide that for your family? For most of us, that's not so. Even for us for the ones of us who grow gardens and things like that every year, we're not necessarily growing enough yet to say that we provide the food for our family for the entire year, everything that's needed. And so in that case, it definitely puts you in a situation that you need to store food. Farmers may grow the food that year, but maybe something happens and it can't get transported to the stores. So anytime you're depending on stores or any type of food place to bring in food, even at farmers markets and different things, a lot of times, anytime you have to wait for food to be transported to your area in order that you can purchase it, then it becomes even more important to store food. There's always a chance that for whatever reason that food will not be able to be transported. Now, also to take an account of when you have storms, droughts, and all of these things. So whatever farmer you're depending on that's going to bring the food to your local Walmart, Kroger, Aldi's, whatever different places that you shop for food, and a storm or anything could decrease the amount of crop that they come in, or destroy whole crops. Anything like that can happen. During the year, and when you see me look down, I'm just looking down at my notes. During the year 2005, during Hurricane Katrina, we experienced that in my area. Because of the hurricane, a whole lot of the roads were blocked because so many trees were blown down. So for a good few days, I don't know how long, but for a while, trucks could not come into our area. And I'm sure that was true after Hurricane Katrina. I'm sure that was true for a lot of places. And so what we saw happening at that time was when we would go in our grocery stores, a lot of the shelves started to become empty, or at least were not full. And of course, water was an issue. Water in my particular area was out for at least 24 hours or more, meaning there was no water, period. Okay. So what ended up happening, at least in my area, there was a small spring in a wooded area. Now, in times past, our family would gather some water from that spring in a wooded area So would another family member, and maybe even just a few other people. And nobody would ever be back there near that spring in that little wooded area. But when the water went completely out during that time, we went to the spring. Okay, so when we went to the spring, also another family that we knew of came to the spring right after us. So then it was just us two. So by the time we got finished gathering water and we looked up, a line of cars was going from where the spring was all the way down the dirt road and all the way into the street, the main street. By the time we looked up and had got finished getting water ourselves. Excuse me just a minute. Shalom, shalom. Sorry about that interruption. But as I said, when we got finished, by the time we got finished getting water for our family, the line of cars was so long. I didn't even realize that none of us realized how many people knew that spring was aware that that was even there, because for years nobody was back there. Nobody would be be there. So just saying that to say too, if you think you have a water source that doesn't necessarily belong to you, but is somewhere, that you use sometimes, don't assume that other people don't know about it, because when things happen and emergency happens, people think back on, where there's water, where there's food and different things like that. And that's something we found out too. So many people got water from the spring that day and piled into that wooded area that the spring, the water, they got all the way down to the dirt. My husband said at the time that it had to, he thought, well, for us to have more water, like if we wanted water the next day, we're going to have to go really, really early, because the spring was going to have time to fill back up, because so many people had got water that the spring had just, the water was, the pool of water from the spring was just gone. It was going to take time for it to refill. And that's something that I had never heard of happening before, but that did happen during that time. Eventually, I want to say the military sent trucks in and they passed out cans of water, not bottled water, but cans of water and army meals to people. So they passed out when the military, I think, was able to come in, 18 wheelers of trucks started coming in with food and water. When you see me look down, I'm just looking down at my notes. Also, when it comes to storing food, it is very, very wise not to freeze everything. It's good to have some food that is not dependent on electricity, that you have some food stored that the electricity does not have to be on in order for it to stay good. And that's another thing that we've learned through a lot of these storms, because I've known people to put up hundreds of dollars of food in their deep freezer, but then if a storm comes through or something tragic happens and your electricity is off, if you do not have a generator, if you have a generator but you don't have access to gas to keep in that generator to keep it going, if that's the type of generator you're using, then you're still looking at losing your food in the deep freezer. Okay, and so I wouldn't tell you not to put any extra food in the deep freezer, but I'm saying try to work, if that's all where all your extra food is, then you want to try to see about having some food that does not depend on electricity to maintain its shelf life. Some different things that can deal with that is water bath canning, pressure canning, or different drying food options. Also, when you're buying food from the store to put away, you can always get healthy canned goods and dry dry goods like beans and things like that to put up just in case of emergencies. Also, when it comes to storing lots of beans and rice, there's ways to do that where it will last a year, 2, 3 years. There's oven canning that does it. There's vacuum sealing, all those types of things, and mason jars that does it also. And I might have to share some that I've done. I did do some oven canning to experiment with it a few years ago. It's been a while, and it did work. I tried it. I did with rice. I want to say oatmeal, and I want to say beans. I want to say, but it did work. So those are just a few options. Many people are afraid of pressure canning. But I've been using a pressure canner for over 18 years. I've never had it blow up or anything like that. The pressure canners, I know at least the one that I bought from Walmart, which is the main one, the Presto pressure canner, not the, it's a pressure canner cooker. Okay, because you also have one that's a pressure cooker. So when I say that, I'm talking about the large one they sell at Walmart. That's a pressure canner, and I also think it's a cooker. But be sure that it says canner if you decide to buy that one. But that one has safety measures on there where as long as you follow the safety measures, you don't have to worry about anything. And let's say, for example, that you forget what the safety measures are. Then literally all you would need to do is cut the stove off and just let it sit there and cool. Or move it off the eye and let it sit there and completely cool all the way down. Okay. But if you are canning back to back and you want to go ahead and be able to can, then there are safety measures that allow you to know when all the pressure is out of that canner. And so for over 18 years, I have not had any pressure canner blow up or anything like that. The next question is, can the Creator provide for us if we don't preserve food or store extra water? Of course, the answer to that is always yes. The Creator can provide for us. But there are times and stories in the Bible of Yah providing information and the people had to do the work. So we have examples of that. Noah and his family is one example of that. During troubled times, due to his righteousness and being obedient to the instructions and the commands for him to build the ark, him and his family were saved through that. So Yah did save Noah and his family, but we know that he had to store food for them. They were responsible for that. They were also given the information. He was also given the information, to build the ark. So there was a work for him to do. And I think that's important to remember. That sometimes Yah saving us, there's something in it for us to do in order to preserve our own lives. So that's something to remember. I want to encourage you to learn to grow food, whether you're in a 1-bedroom apartment or you own 1 acre of land, or whether you have 100 acres of land. Learn to grow food even if you're in a small space. An option is that you can do container gardening if you're in a small space. If you're in a small apartment or you just have a bedroom in the home that you're in, and it can cost you as little as $3 to get started. Dollar Tree, if you have a Dollar Tree in your area, it has a nice garden section. They sell seeds, 3 or 4 for $1. They also sell potting soil for $1 too. They also sell pots to plant in, also $1. The prices have gone up just a little, so maybe you'll pay $1.25, which is still pretty cheap. So it's pretty inexpensive to get started. And the importance of getting used to and growing your own food is that helps you create a certain mindset. And that mindset will start to spread to others in your family, others in your house too. Um, as women, when we do this in our homes, our yard, or on our land, we are planting a way of thinking. And so that's something to remember. Sometimes, even when you do something on a small level, the kind of encouragement and a planting of an idea will last a lifetime for those around you. They'll remember. I remember my my stepmother canning. I remember my grandfather growing food, even though at the time I wasn't interested in that. I remember those. I remember those things. Um, Today, you may be providing a little something extra, fresh food for yourself or for your family, but it's also preparing a mindset of us providing for food for our own nation. That as a people, we begin to plant the seed of providing our food for ourselves and for our own people. Right now, we depend on other nations for just about everything we need, from clothing to food. A lot of times we don't think about that as Hebrew Israelites, but most other nations, unless you're dealing with globalization, most other nations are used to providing for themselves. Well, since we've been out of our land and in these different places, we basically depend on others to provide for our nation. And you can imagine what that's like. You could imagine if all the other nations said don't sell to any Hebrew Israelite, then what would we do? Are there enough of us in our areas to provide food to each other? Okay, and then that gives you an idea of the importance of bringing that idea back in, that we start to contribute to what our own nation needs. It's just like on an individual level, we want to contribute to what our family needs. That doesn't mean that it's not okay to get help sometimes, but definitely, most of us don't want to be in a situation where all the provision for our family is provided from another family. Our goal is to work toward providing for ourselves and to, do that. Now, for those of you who may be thinking, well, I only eat fresh food, that is fine. What we're talking about with storing extra food and water is that something has happened and occurred that maybe you can't grow that year. Maybe wherever you go buy your fresh food is not available that year. But at this point, you need to eat, to live, to literally live, And at that point, by the time, let's say, for example, you hadn't had food for 2 days, you or your children or your brothers and sisters, by the time you get to that third or that fourth day, you're not going to be concerned on whether you can get fresh whatever it is. You're going to be concerned with eating something, providing something for you and your family to eat, and providing something that's kosher. And so that's what you're dealing with in emergencies. And really how they do now, that's another thing that I want to mention before I end this video. I know my mother-in-law, sometimes when we have been riding together, she would say, I remember a time when we could pick blueberries all across that area. But they built these houses, and when they did that, they tore all the blueberry bushes down. We live in a very odd thinking world that you have to be very confident in your food industry to destroy free food that's just out in the earth, in the open, that's free. You gotta be very, very confident. So I'm saying that to say that you may be thinking to yourself, well, there's plenty of berry bushes and this and that. Well, there's a lot of building and destroying and building all the time. Forests are being cleared. Loggers are coming through clearing. People are clearing to build houses, businesses, and so the peach tree or blueberry, whatever you thought was out there, it may be there in a time of need and it may not, because maybe all of that was cleared to build a new Walmart. You just never know. And so I just wanted to say that to those who may be thinking in that way. Wow, I want to eat fresh every day. Well, that's good. But storing and preserving food means that if an emergency happens, that your family will eat, which I guarantee you at that time, that is what you're going to be concerned about, is that they eat and that is kosher, and that you can maintain your life and the life of your family, and help maintain the life of your friends and neighbors if you can. So that's just something I wanted to talk about in this video. I know it's a very popular topic, but thank you for your time. If you'd like to contact me, you're welcome to do that at yazcornerstone@gmail.com. That's yazcornerstone@gmail.com. You could also follow me on Facebook. The page is called Supporting Yaz Cornerstone on Instagram. On Facebook, there's a Facebook page, and it's called Supporting Yaz Cornerstone. Also, you're also welcome to leave comments or questions at anywhere you see this video, whether you view it on Facebook or or you're on YouTube viewing it. You're welcome to leave a question or comment or anything below. Please share this channel. Please, I ask if you would please like these videos. It helps, I think, the algorithm to suggest them to others, so this type of information could get more and more out, or these videos will get more and more out. My goal is to help as many women as I can. Thank you for your time. Shalom, shalom.